Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another 10 pens currently inked this week. So I think let's go through these briefly one by one. We'll go through them in a little bit more detail and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right we have a Platinum 3776 and this is in the Chartres Bleu. We have a Pilot Custom 823 with an FA nib. We have a London pen company, the Christopher, in Caramel Aeronoid. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. We have a Scribo Feel in the Verde Prato. We have a Sailor 1911 with a Naginata Togi nib. We have a Stipula Itria Corsani. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence. A Visconti Divina Elegance in green. And an Omas Arte Italiana Paragon Grande in the Arco brown. So I think let's take a look at these pens in a little bit more detail. So this is the Platinum 3776 and this is in a what they call Chartres Bleu. So this is a sort of translucent or semi-translucent blue material, and I don't know if you can see that here, but this is actually see-through. I can see it here. Now, this comes with a Platinum 3776 nib. It's a 14 karat gold nib. And I get a lot of people ask me, will a 14 karat gold nib or an 18 karat gold nib be softer than a steel nib? Or will even a 14 karat gold nib be softer than an 18 karat gold nib? And the answer to that is possibly, maybe, yes and no. So when it comes down to platinum nibs, the platinum gold nibs, which are typically 14 karat gold nibs, are very, very stiff, rigid nibs. They are like a steel nib. Now, you can get steel nibs that are actually a lot more softer than a gold nib even. So it really just depends on the type of sort of manufacturer and nib that you are going for. Now, so this is a Platinum 3776 nib and it's a medium nib, which I found to actually be very scratchy out of the box, and I did a lot of work on this nib to actually make it as smooth as it is today, unfortunately. I have a lot of friends that several of them have had Platinum 3776s and they say that theirs have been very smooth. So I think it really is just the luck of the draw, like with any pen and any nib, and maybe I just got a bad one. But I did do a lot of work here to smooth this nib out. This is a cartridge converter and I'll show you here. It's a cartridge converter here. I'm quite low on ink in here, but this is it's a pen that I bought, I think probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I was more in my, I guess, my experimental phase, and I just thought that I would buy one of these because everybody was raving about them, and it just, I don't know, it just hasn't, it's not a workhorse writer pen for me. So for me, it's just a pen that I guess rarely write with, and I may look at selling it at some point because it's just a nib that isn't for me. Although saying that, I've gone for a couple of Nikayas more recently and I have some soft medium nibs on those and they do write a lot better. The next pen here is the Pilot Custom 823 in the FA nib. Now, I had 3 of these, and these are not the ones with the standard like fine, medium and broad nibs on. These are the FA nibs, or short for Falcon. These are flex nibs, and these are typically only available out of Japan. And I actually bought 3 within the space of 6 months. And I have since sold 2 of them because I just didn't write with them. They're really nice pens. I like the capacity of ink that this holds. I like the design. I like the cigar. And I like the nib. It's an FA nib, so you can see here that this is a really nice sort of wing cutout nib. It's a 14 karat gold nib, and I do like it, but I just didn't write with them enough to keep the other two. So I did sell two of them to some of my viewers here, and I hope they're still using them, but I still use this one from time to time. I just don't use it as much as I would like to, I guess, because I do have a lot of pens. Then we have this one, and this is the London Pen Company, and this is the Christopher in Erinoid Caramel. And this is a really beautiful pen that Sean at the London Pen Company sent me for review, and I still have it here. It's a beautiful pen. Now, this pen has been made really nicely. Comes with a Yovo nib, and I have a broad nib on here. Just looking, yeah, it is a broad nib. And it has this ebonite section. It's a cartridge converter pen. You can see here, though, this material is lovely. And it does remind me very much of the Pelican M800 Grande Place. I was going to say M805 then, but it's M800 because it's got the gold trim on it. This is a really lovely pen, and you can see here that the cap is sort of semi-translucent there. So this is a really good pen that Sean at the London Pen Company has made. He makes a lot of great pens, and I think the workmanship, the polishing of the pen is really good. The next pen here, which I have actually flushed out, and I'm going to ink back up again, but I want to try a few blue inks before I do. So I was going to just either ink it up or dip test this with Diamine Majestic Blue. I wanted to mostly show you the pattern here because this pattern on the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog is really nice. And unfortunately, when you fill it with ink, it isn't as nice a looking pen. Now, this does have a fine nib on, and I'm not normally a person that will do a fine nib. But this is a 23 cat palladium nib, and I love this. I really love how that pen writes. So that one will be inked up this week. And then we have the Scribo fill, and I do love this colour. It's a really beautiful green. And I tend to ink this up with a couple of green colours. One is Ackerman Dutch Masters Van Huysum Sapgrown, and the other is Pilot Awashizuku Chiku Rin, which is what it is inked up with today. This has a 14 karat gold flex nib, and these are the old style Omas extra flexibile nibs with an ebonite feed, and this really writes beautifully. Now, a pen I've not actually taken out for a while now and written with is this one, and this is the Sailor 1911, and this is the large. So this is, I only bought one of these. I was tempted to buy two at one point. This is one of the older style Naginata Togi nibs, and if I can get that in focus there, you'll see it, that nib. So it's a very sort of chiseled out sort of architect grind, and this is a 21 karat gold nib, but these are really lovely. So this one is inked up, and I love how these pens write. I do find them a little bit on the short side for me, a little bit on the thin side, to what I prefer. Like, I can write with this perfectly fine, but I prefer a pen that is a little bit girthier in diameter. The next pen here is the Stipula Itria, and you'll see here it should say Stipula there, and it is the Etruria Corsani, and it's made in Florence, Italy. And there you go, Etruria Corsani. And this is an ebonite pen that you can see here, and this is a 14 karat gold nib, and you'll see that that is a nice nib. Now, strange enough, this is supposed to be a medium nib, and it really writes very broad for me, so I really I like writing with it, but it's not a daily writer because it's super wet and super broad. And I am finding that with a lot of my more broader nibs nowadays, that because I'm writing a lot more in notebooks, wanting to turn pages, I'm finding that I'm having to wait a lot longer, so I'm typically not using those maybe as often as I should do. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence, and this is a beautiful purple pen, and this comes with the old style again, 23 carat palladium nibs, and this is a medium nib, but this has an ABS plastic feed. It's a power vac, it's a double reservoir, so it holds around 2.5 milliliters of ink, and this is, for me, one of the most comfortable pens in my collection. And that's why I like the Homo Sapien range. They are very, very comfortable pens for long writing sessions. The next pen I have here is the Visconti Divina in the Elegance green. And this is a beautiful green with these bronze sort of accented rods. It just really is a beautiful, beautiful pen. And I do like these a lot, these Divinas. They don't hold a lot of ink. This comes with a 23 carat palladium nib, and it's a medium nib. But in terms of ink capacity, they hold around about 0.7 milliliters of ink, so about the same as a standard international converter. But the filling mechanism is a little bit quirky. You have to basically pull out this knob here, which I will probably break a nail on because that is very hard. And then you basically twist just like you would a converter. So I'm not going to pull it out just yet because I don't want to break a nail on camera. But this is a beautiful pen, and I do like writing with that a lot. And then the last pen here I have inked up today is an Omas Arte Italiana Paragon Grande. And this is in the Arco brown material. And this is a really beautiful Arco material. And unfortunately, Omas are long gone now. Scribo, the employees of Omas have started Scribo up, and they are using many of the similar nibs that Omas used to have made with Bock. So this one here is a really beautiful 18 karat gold nib with an ebonite feed. This is a medium nib, and it writes nice and wet, and I absolutely love it. It does have a silver vermil, gold vermil coloured section there over solid silver. That adds a lot more weight to the pen, and you will find that makes it a little bit easier to write with. So that's all of my currently inked pens for this week. I think let's now go and do a writing sample. So the first pen we have inked up today is the Platinum 3776. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, because this is an Asian nib, this actually writes at least one nib width finer than a Western nib. So as this is a Asian medium nib, it writes more like a Western fine. Now, if I, that's the ink swatch there. So this is a Platinum 3776, and it's the Chatres, I think that's how you spell it, Bleu. And it's a medium, and it's a 14 karat gold nib. I think all the Platinum nibs are 14 karat gold. And then the ink in here today is Diamine, and it's Majestic Blue, which is actually a nice dark blue ink. The next pen here is the Pilot Custom 823. So we're doing an ink swatch. And this is an FA nib. So this to me writes more along the lines of a fine or an extra fine nib without any pressure. So this is a Pilot Custom 823 in the FA nib, and you can see the line variation there. So it is an FA nib, and it's a 14 cat gold nib, so you can get quite a lot of expression out of this nib. Now the ink in here is Pilot Iroshizuku, and this is Satsuji. And I just had to think about that because I wasn't sure if it was Momiji or Satsuji. That is Satsuji. Satsuji is a nice hot pink. The next pen is the London pen company, the Christopher. Let's do an ink swatch. And this is a broad nib, and this is really the kind of nib that I tend to prefer more. So this is a London pen company, and it's called the Christopher. And it's in an Emerald Caramel. Now this is a broad nib, and it's a steel nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine Terra Cotta. But that is a really nice brown ink. I find it a little bit more on the dry side, that ink. So it's best to put it in either a very wet writing nib or a broad writing nib. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now this again is a fine nib, so like the first two, but this is a very wet writing fine nib. And this is a Visconti Dream Touch nib. So it's a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. And it's a fine, and it's a 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here today, I'm trying a few different inks. So this one is Diamine Bleu. I want to just sort of try some different blue inks than I would normally ink up. The next pen is the Scribo Feel. So we'll do an ink swatch. And this is a medium 14 cat gold nib, but as you can see here, it is absolutely super wet. So this is the Scribo Feel, and it's in the Verde, Prato, and it's a medium 14 cat gold nib. And then the ink in here today is Pilot Iroshizuku, and it's a Chiku Rin. And this ink, I do find actually feathers on this paper. This is Oxford Optic paper, because it is a very wet nib as well. The next pen is a Sailor 1911 large. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now this is an interesting nib, and that's why I primarily bought this. I wanted it for the nib. So this is a Sailor 1911 large, and it's a Naginata Togi. And you can see the difference in line variation here. It's the opposite to most other nibs. So you actually get a wider horizontal and a narrower sort of vertical line. This is a 21 cat gold nib, but I like this a lot, this nib, and this was a nib that I bought before they went out of production and then before they came back into production. So these prices of these pens, I think I paid about 230 for this pen, and I think they're now around about 500, 500, something like that. Crazy prices. So it is a specialty nib though. The ink in here is Franklin, Christoph, Sweet, Maroon. But I really do like that line variation. It makes your writing look a lot different. The next pen is the Stipula Itria Corsani. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, this is supposed to be a medium nib, but just look at how wet and how broad this nib is. So this is a Stipula, and it's the Etruria Corsani. Now, it's supposed to be a medium nib, but this is almost like a double board for me. It is a massive width of a nib, and because of that, you're going to see a lot of feathering, which is starting to occur on this Oxford Optic paper. It's a 14 cat gold nib. It's because I've left it out whilst I was talking. And then the ink in here is Pilot. Do that properly. Eroshizuku. And this is Sakushi. But this is a super wet nib, and I just find it too broad and too wet to write with. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now this is another Visconti 23 cat Palladium Dream Touch nib, and it's a medium nib. So this is a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence, and it's a medium 23 cat Palladium nib. And then the ink in here is KWZ Gummy Berry, which is a very nice sort of purplish coloured ink. The next pen is the Visconti Divina Elegance in green. So we'll do an ink swatch. And this has another Visconti 23 cat Palladium Dream Touch nib on. This is a lot more of a firmer or rigid nib. So this is a Visconti Divina Elegance in green. Oops. And it's a medium 23 cat Palladium nib. And the ink in here is Diamine Meadow, which is a lovely green ink. And then the last pen here is the Omas Arte Italiana Paragon Grande. So we'll do an ink swatch. And you can see here, this is an interesting brown. So this is the Omas, Arte, Italiana, Paragon, Grande in the Arco brown. And it's a medium 18 cat gold nib. And the ink in here is Herbin or J. Herbin. And it's Ombre de Burmanie, which is a lovely brown ink. So I think let's just go through these inks one more time. We have a Platinum 3776 in a Chartres Bleu in a medium 14 karat gold nib inked up with Diamine Majestic Blue. We have a Pilot Custom 823 with an FA 14 karat gold nib inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Satsuji. We have a London Pen Company, the Christopher, in a broad steel nib inked up with Diamine Terracotta. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog in a fine 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Diamine Azure Blue. We have a Scribo Fill in the Verde Prato in a medium 14 karat gold nib inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Chikurin. We have a Sailor 1911 large in a Naginata Togi nib, and it's a 21 karat gold nib inked up with Franklin Christoph Sweet Maroon. We have a Stipula Itria Corsani in a medium 14 karat gold nib inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Sakushi. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with KWZ Gummy. We have a Visconti Divina Elegance Green in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Diamine Meadow. And then we have an Omas Arte Italiana Paragon Grande in the Arco brown in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Herbin Ombre de Burmanie. So there you have it. That's my currently ink pens for this week. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.